Today, we plan on having a ball with Michael Stern, the author of I Had a Ball, My Friendship with Lucille Ball. Michael will share a refreshing glimpse into the life of a natural comedienne and actress while providing fascinating insights into what it was like to become a fan, and then a lifelong friend of Lucy's, one of television's biggest personalities of all time. Our format for today will be, first, I will ask Michael a few questions to find out how all this began. Then Michael will take us through a PowerPoint filled with fun photos and talk about this fascinating woman with whom he shared many unforgettable adventures and other notable celebrities. Then if there's time for a few videos, we will show those and end with your questions from the chat. Please write your questions in the chat and I will share them. And Michael, we are so glad that you are here with us today. So let's begin with some of the questions.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, first of all. And real important question is, Sonia, what are you drinking? It looks really good. you don't have, it looked good. Whatever you're drinking looks really good. And I
it's whiskey on the rocks.
Oh, I hope you brought some for everybody.
That's great.
Well, it's like Lucy, it's like vitamin to vegemin.
It's Snapple, so enjoy. I'm going to enjoy your presentation.
You. Well, I appreciate it. Hi, everybody.
Okay, so I'm just going to say that I got a message that some people are having a hard time signing in. I'm not sure why. You might have to start over, so try again if you can. So we will, yeah, hopefully that'll get some of your folks in. Okay, Michael, here we go. How old were you when you first met Lucille Ball, and where did this occur?
Well, the first time I ever saw her in person, I was 10 and a half. I went to a filming of Here's Lucy, which was Lucille Ball's third big hit series. She was on TV for 23 and a half years straight through. And my brother took me to a filming because my neighbor's mother's boss got me tickets to the show. I lived in Van Nuys, which is a small little community, and luck had it, it was, thank God for my neighbor. But I actually got to meet her when I was 12 and a half. It was also at Here's Lucy. I brought my scrapbook of photos to Lucille Ball's mother because I collected, magazine clippings and all that. And she said, how would you like to meet Lucy after the show? So after the show, it was an episode with Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet. And we had to wait until the audience left. And then she took me backstage, and I was with my mom that day. And it took me about 20 years later to realize how special my mom was, because she did not want to go backstage with me to meet Lucy because she knew this was my time to be with Lucy. And she didn't want to spoil that. And like I said, it took like 20 years to realize what a special mom I had, that she wanted to meet Lucy, but no, this was his turn. So I got to go backstage. There was a staircase to her dressing room. And when I first saw her backstage, like 2 feet away, she looked like she was 12 feet tall. And she went and she looked at my scrapbook. She gave me a kiss. She signed an autograph. And then I was on my way. But it was about a 3-minute encounter, 4 minutes. But it's something I'll never forget.
It changed your life, it sounds like. Yeah,
absolutely.
And here you are today, all these years later, and still very tied. That's fabulous.
And I still haven't washed my cheek yet.
So, well, you spoke to what drew you to her initially, and then that kiss, sealed it. And so, moving a little forward, I know you've been a lifelong fan, but how did that fanfare continue? And then when did it morph into your friendship? And
sure. Well, I'm going to go back 12 seconds first. I first discovered Lucille Ball. Can I tell you how I discovered her?
Of course.
Okay. I went to the movies in Canada, where I was born, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I saw the movie Yours, Mine, and Ours. I was 8 years old, and it was the first movie, according to my folks, that I actually sat in the theater the entire time without getting up 100 times and running up and down the aisle. Something about her made me like, I was just infatuated. I mean, just something about her red hair, her expressions, she could do no wrong, that I made my parents take me back a week later to see that movie again. Then about 6 months later, I was watching a show called I Love Lucy. Have you all heard about I Love Lucy? You've all seen it? Good. And that lady made me laugh. And I didn't know that it was the same lady until my aunt said, Michael, that's the same lady who was in the movie Yours, Mine, and Ours. And from that minute on, I fell in love with not just the character of Lucy Ricardo or Helen North Beersley from Yours, Mine, and Ours, but Lucille Ball, the actress. And that's how I first discovered Lucy. Back to your question. I was a big, huge fan, but then I would see Lucy over and over again, like either at a filming of Here's Lucy or at a special or whatever. And she taught a class, like she had sort of retired from TV. She was still working, but sort of retired from weekly TV. And she took me to the side and she said, Michael, she knew my name. Oof, so excited. And then she said, look, you could be my number one fan, but you better get a job. You better stay in school. And then you could be my number one fan. If not, find somebody else, I got a job working at my local May company, which is like Macy's, in the linen department. And I called Lucille Ball's secretary and I said, please tell Lucy that I now have a job and I'm still in school. And she says, okay, I'll tell Lucy. And within a week, Lucille Ball came to the May company in North Hollywood to make sure that I was that I was working. So here is the biggest star that I know of came to a local city, not Beverly Hills, to make sure that I was working. And she bought like over $400 worth of linens for me in those days. And she said, do you play backgammon? I said, no. She said, you'll come to my house and you'll learn. She gave me her home phone number. And from that time on, I was at her house 2-3 days a week playing backgammon with her. And we were a 50-year age difference too. But she became a good friend of mine.
That's a fantastic story. And I have to just make a couple observations. One, I get a sense that you're kind of a funny guy too. And so I wonder if what drew you to Lucy was, she was obviously a comedian, but you kind of have that in your kishkas as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. Sherry Kivich, do you agree? Just shake your head. Okay, good. She agrees. Just, you know what? I always loved comedy. And I always felt like she was like the next door neighbor, the friend, the fun stuff. And that's what I sort of was attracted to, like the fun people that I always thought were my friends, even though we watched them on TV every week. But they were in our homes. And yes, that's what attracted me to her and her humor. And from day one, even though I was 10 years old, 12 years old, 13, I always knew the difference between Lucille Ball, the person, and Lucille Ball, the actress, playing a character. I always knew Lucille Ball was not Lucy Ricardo, and Lucy Ricardo was not Lucy Carter or anything like that. She was playing an actress. I'm gonna jump forward. There's a movie out there now called Being the Ricardos with Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem. And Nicole Kidman, who was up for an Oscar, knew the difference between the character of Lucille Ball and Lucy Ricardo, that Lucille Ball would say tomato, but Lucy Ricardo would say tomato. So there was a difference. I always knew there was a difference of characters. And I got to know Lucille Ball, the person. I never met Lucy Ricardo.
That's fascinating and so interesting. And this relationship certainly, speaks to your relationship. And it, and it's interesting to me, I've done some intergenerational program in the last few years, and how fascinating it is that you were doing this all these years ago, the importance of the differences in ages and how you came together to form this long-lasting, meaningful relationship that I'm sure she guided you in your life and you guided her as well. You learned from each other.
I agree with you. It's like almost like, what would Lucy say to me to do this step or whatever? And I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but I think because where I work now, it's all because of Lucille Ball, and that's 35 years later. And she guided me in the right places. But to be honest, if I ever had a problem, and I would go to Lucy first, she would say, that's great, or that's that, or whatever, do this, but did you talk to your parents? And she always knew the boundaries, and it was always talk to your parents about it. So she got me closer to my parents. I have wonderful parents that Sherry will agree to.
That's wonderful. And so from backgammon, those weekly sessions of backgammon, how did you then morph into becoming family? So Lucy has children. How did that all come together with Desi and Lucy?
And that's true. I mean, Lucille Ball had 2 children, and they're both named after their parents. So it was in the household, there were 2 Desis and 2 Lucilles. But the way that you could tell the 2 Lucilles apart is the daughter was spelled Lucie, like it made a difference. I really became friendly with Lucy Arnaz after her mom passed away, actually. Almost the week after she passed away is when we actually became close. That she has a home now in Palm Springs, and which is about a 2-hour drive from where I live now. And whenever I stay in Palm Springs, I always stay at her house. And her house is not filled with a lot of photos of her parents, but they are her parents. And it's like, ooh, I want that. I want that. It's like, she's got a nice little collection, but that's of her mom and dad.
Yeah.
But Lucy Arnaz and I are extremely close. She went to the Oscars for the first time last weekend, and it was the first time she's been there since 1981, when she actually opened the show. I mean, she literally was the opening act in 1981, and she was Nicole Kidman's guest. And I thought she would be sitting like right next to Nicole Kidman, but no, she sat in the top balcony. She goes, I'm in nosebleed section. And but she was at the Oscars, rooting on Nicole and the one who played her mom and dad, and Fred Mertz in being the Ricardos.
Nice. And moving forward, because I know we want to get to the PowerPoint, what are some of your fondest memories that really stand out for you with your intimate time with Lucy?
Well, that's always a tough question. Just the me time with her, just playing backgammon. She would tell stories, but nothing like with Desi or anything like that. It was always what was in the news today. And so I think that's one reason we started off with a really good relationship. It's because I never asked her, what was it like with this, or what was it like with that 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It was always what's in the news today. And I remember one story in particular. I had a cousin that passed away with cancer. And she said, oh, was it AIDS? This was like 1984. And I go, he's not gay. And she goes, Michael, AIDS is not a gay disease. I mean, she was so in the news. She knew even way back then that it was a disease. And so she taught me a lot of things. And she also taught me never quit. Just don't be a quitter. Just get fired, collect unemployment, but don't be a quitter. So she taught me a lot.
A lot of life lessons, it sounds like, which is really
Absolutely.
remarkable. You know, to have a mentor and a friend to carry you through your developing years is extraordinary.
Absolutely. She was a very smart woman.
Mhm. So you've already talked about how special she is. And so what compelled you to write the book and share her story and be out in the public with your relationship with her?
You mean this book?
That's the one.
I am not a writer, but I met a lot of fans. There's a Lucy Desi Museum in Jamestown, New York. We used to have Lucy conventions in Burbank, California. And I met a lot of other fans who always said, "You're the one person we wanted to be." You know, like you're one step away from Lucille Ball. And there's been a lot of books about Lucille Ball, maybe 50, 60 books, but it was always written by Lucille Ball's manicurists, next door neighbors, gardeners, butcher, and would write a book, who never met Lucille Ball and would always hear these stories about Lucy, true or false. And I wanted to write a book from my point of view. And this is the only book that's authorized by her kids, Lucy and Desi Jr. It's the only one out there. Because it's what I was thinking. It's not what Lucille Ball, you don't know what somebody else is thinking. And a lot of books are out there. Lucille Ball was thinking this. It's like, how would you know what she was thinking? These are stories that Lucy told me, or I shared. We went to Chasen's restaurant once, which was a big fancy restaurant in Beverly Hills. And so it was my story that we went to Chasen's. Little things like that. So it's from my point of view. And it's done very well. And Sherry probably has a copy or two or three, I hope. And it's just a really nice book. When I was about to write it, I met this publisher and he said, "What's the dirt? What dirt do you have in it?" I go, "There's no dirt. There's no dirt. Nobody will buy the book. Nobody will buy it." Well, it's sold over 10,000 copies so far. Just because it's my story about Lucy. Now, if something happened in her house when I was with her, that's not in the book. That's her private time. When she was out there in the public, we tell stories. Or there's a couple stories, like one day I watched for about 8 hours I Love Lucy with Lucille Ball. So I tell that story. And that was fun. But other than that, if I ever saw her do something in the house, which I never did, I would not put that in the book. These are just my stories, fun stories.
Well, we're certainly glad that you put those stories to pen and are here to share them with us. And so with that, Christy, I'm going to have you cue up the PowerPoint, and I'm going to take myself off of Spotlight, and we'll highlight Michael, and he will share more stories with all these photos.
You got it. Let's see, what are you going to surprise me with? Oh, okay. And can I talk over this?
Yes.
Okay. So this was early on. I got a picture, and Lucy always signed her autograph, "Love Lucy." And this was especially from 1951, 52, because there was only one Lucy at the time, and there's still only one Lucy. And so she autographed it for me, "Love Lucy." And Desi Arnaz had signed it first. And this was before I knew that they were still good friends. And they were good friends till the day he passed away. But I had him sign it first. And then I said, "Is it okay that Desi signed it?" She goes, "Yes, Michael, it's okay." So that's an autograph photo I have of Desi Arnaz and Lucy. It's one of my, and it's during the prime of I Love Lucy. I just love that photo. That picture, which I did not take, it was before my time. But that's at Paramount Studios, which at the time was Desilu. But I walk on that street every single day because right behind Lucy, that wall behind Lucy, is where they filmed the Dr. Phil show. And I've been on the Dr. Phil show for next week will end my 17th season on Dr. Phil. But we walk on the same, I'm walking in her steps every day. So I just had to share that. That is the Lucy and Desi documentary, which was just put out there on Amazon about a month ago. It's directed by Amy Poehler, and I helped on it a little bit. I was interviewed, and I'm on the cutting room floor along with other people, but I helped guide where the story would go. So I helped on it. So it's a great documentary on Lucy and Desi. That picture, I feel like I'm looking at home movies. That was at the Bob Hope special, and she was dressed up as Lucille Ball, just like right before she went on. So I just love that photo. My friend drew that picture. That was like the day I met Lucy backstage. Behind is something called Lucy Lane, and the prop guys made behind the set of Here's Lucy Lane, where her dressing room was, and Lucy Arnaz's dressing room, Gil Gordon, who played Mr. Mooney and Uncle Harry, and the beauty salon and the wardrobe department was all back there, but it was dressed to look like a street, and they called it Lucy Lane. And I've never seen that anywhere else. I used to collect autographs, and I knew Lucy was going to be somewhere. And this was early on, and I was behind the ropes, and she saw me, and she came running over to me and gave me this big hug. And that's one of my favorite photos. They're all my favorites. That was at another Bob Hope special after she appeared, and you could sort of tell there's a little difference of look, but just a beautiful photo. That was a sad day. She came back after retiring from weekly TV called Life with Lucy, and I got to work with her on that, not full time, because she didn't want me to give up my daytime job until we knew that show was going to be a hit. And that was the day she found out she was actually fired from television. And about a half hour later, she broke down crying to me. I mean, it was just the two of us, and she just broke down crying because she had never been fired from TV. And it was the industry that she sort of created for TV tossed her out on the street. And it was such a sad day. But she kept a, stiff upper lip in front of everybody else. But when we were walking out of the studio for the last time, she just broke down crying. Lucille Ball, Desi Arnaz, at a movie premiere of Lucy Arnaz's play, and I can't remember the name, Whose Life Is It Anyway? And it was one of the few times I ever saw them together. That was Lucy Arnaz, first time I ever got a photo with her at the play. They're playing our song, and she had the starring role, and it was where she did her Broadway debut. And many years ago. And Desi Arnaz Jr. At the opening of the Lucille Ball Museum, it was called Lucy a Tribute at Universal Studios Hollywood, and it was supposed to last about 5 years. I had a lot of my memorabilia there, and that museum was such a hit. It was there for 18 years. Lucy Arnaz came to visit me and Dr. Phil and Robin one time at the Dr. Phil show. And that stage is where Lucille Ball first met Desi Arnaz. So there was a lot of, every day I walk down the stage where they met. And that was just like, I don't know where you got these pictures. About 3 weeks ago at the premiere of the Lucy Desi documentary. Lucy, during the pandemic, let her hair go gray. And I grew a beard. So we all look a little different during the pandemic. Oh, go back for a second. This has nothing to do with it, but see the jacket I'm wearing? It came with a matching pair of pants. And it was the first time I put it on, and it became a Lucy episode because the second I put it on and I sit in the car, I heard rip, rip, rip. It was like a Lucy episode. I had to go change and put on other clothes. It wasn't because I was fat. It was just because you don't buy a suit online for $59. That's all I have to say.
Oh, missing something there.
Okay. Lucille Ball introduced me to Carol Burnett, another redhead. I have something with redheads. And I have now known Carol Burnett. These are my idols. I mean, Lucy is my number one. But I was on Carol Burnett's 50th anniversary special, which is about 4 years ago now, 3 years ago. And I was on stage with her, and she wrote, "I'm so glad we've had this time together." And she's just a special lady. And the next one is Betty White, who is one of the first celebrities after Lucy. She said, "Here's my home phone number." And she got me tickets to the Match Game and the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And that's her with Alan Ludden, the love of her life. And she made it to almost 100. And just, if you think of what Betty White would be in person, that's exactly the way she was. She was just as nice as can be. Same thing with Carol Burnett and Lucy. They're exactly what you think they would be. Florence, okay, now I'm name dropping. Okay, this is not the what I wanted to do, but this is so funny. Florence Henderson, I first met about 18 years ago. I was working a show in Las Vegas, and it was at the Las Vegas Hilton Hotel. And I saw her in the lobby, and I had already known her for a little bit, but I said, "I'm going to go to another hotel to meet my parents for dinner." And she said, "Have a great time," and all that. And about an hour and a half later, I came back, and she was still in the lobby. And she said, "How was dinner?" I go, "I got stood up from my parents. I have no idea where they are." I guess it was right before cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone. My dad would never eat at a buffet restaurant. And that's the only restaurant I didn't check to see where my parents were. She said, "Good, then you're coming with me." And we had dinner together with her, the owners of Ferrari, and the owners of Pepsi Cola. It was just like the 8 of us. And from that minute on, she became a dear friend. She actually wrote the foreword in my Lucy book, and she wrote it 3 weeks before she passed away. 21 days to the day that she passed away suddenly. Betty White, I was her escort the night for a charity event, and she was allowed to go meet President Clinton. And she was going to meet President Clinton after he did his speech. But she was already like 93 years old, 92. And so I went to security, the Secret Service. I said, "I'm here with Betty White. She's supposed to meet the president after his speech, but can she do it now?" And so security is, talking into their cufflinks. And of course, whatever she wanted, she got to do. And she said, "How would you like to go meet the president with me?" They had never met. I said, yes. She goes, good. Then you're going to name your next kid after me. So she sort of photobombed the photo, and it's blurry. But she introduced me to the president. Joan Rivers, another person that I really got chummy with, that I actually stayed at her house overnight, and just a really nice lady. Just, they're all nice, what can I say? Comedy, and I get along with comedians, I guess. And there is an early picture of Joan Rivers. I worked on a show called The Grudge Match, and that's Melissa Rivers, before she was actually Melissa Rivers, and her mom came to visit. I was a panelist on a show called Cupcake Wars. It was an I Love Lucy theme, and they asked me to be a judge. They said I was like Simon Cowell. I was very nasty. One of my favorite photos, because I love old television. I don't know if you recognize who these people are, but it's on the left are the three kids from Father Knows Best, and on the right is the Beaver and Wally. And when I put that up on Facebook, that became my #1 biggest likes. It's just, and now I'm good friends with the Beaver. One of my favorite shows on TV outside of Lucy is Dallas, and that's me with the cast of Dallas. And I just met Priscilla Presley about 3 weeks ago at dinner. I think that's the last photo. Oh my gosh, there's more. The cast of the Brady Bunch, and I'm really good friends with the two of the youngest kids from the Brady Bunch, Susan Olsen and Mike Lookinland. But all 6 kids all together at dinner. Will and Grace, if you all remember that show. I'm friends with Deborah Messing, another redhead who's about to appear on Broadway. I think it's opening this week. And I think that's the last photo. Please make sure it's the last photo. Let's see. Yay! So that's my life. I love taking celebrity photos. But it's fun that Amy Poehler, who directed the new Lucy and Desi, we did everything on Zoom. And so I really never got to meet her until the premiere 3 weeks ago. And I asked for a photo, and she goes, no, I want a photo with Michael Stern. So we took a great photo together. And of course, you don't have that one. So yeah, I have a lot of celebrity photos. And it's fun. It's a hobby. It's a fun one. It's harmless. And thank you for showing those.
Sure. Thank you, Michael, for taking us down memory lane. And if you are open for our participants to maybe post some questions in the chat.
Absolutely.
We welcome those questions. The other thing too is that it's a small enough group that if you're okay with people unmuting and calling out those questions.
Certainly.
Okay.
And I just saw one, I don't know who it's from, but what's one of my favorite items?
That's for me. Yeah, it's for me.
Okay. I don't know who me is, but oh yeah.
Morty.
Oh, Morty. Okay. Yeah. So one of my favorite items, she gave me, Lucille Ball gave me about 40 years ago. She had a place in Snowmass. Do you all know where Snowmass is? In Colorado. And this was like 1972. She broke her leg skiing. And they wrote it into the Here's Lucy episodes of her with her cast. She was supposed to do the movie Maine, and they actually postponed the movie Maine for about 1.5 years so her leg would get stronger. And so then she did the movie Maine. But she gave me, and Michael, this is not we did not rehearse this. She gave me her cast when she broke her leg, and she signed it, Love Lucy. And she goes, now you have the cast of I Love Lucy. So that's one of my favorite items. Another favorite item, which I don't have, that's the only prop item I have here at my desk. But that's not true. I have this. It's a drinking mug that says Love Lucy. Try to find those on eBay. And her secretary, Wanda, who just celebrated her birthday. I think she's now, I won't say, but she's up there. She gave me one of Lucille Ball's personal phone books. And so it's like, if I want to call Frank Sinatra or this one or that one, but my name's in there. And it's like, oh my gosh, Sinatra, Stern, it's like, it's very exciting. And so I have one of her phone books. Those are the items that, I have one of her Emmys. Lucy gave me one of her Emmys. It's not the statue one. It's, I don't even have it out right now. Or do I? No, it's, it was like on the 33rd annual Emmy Awards, and everyone who was there that day autographed it. It's a certificate on her like 35th anniversary of TV. And so I have that. We once had I Love Lucy Day here in Los Angeles, and the mayor, this was after she passed away, I Love Lucy Day, and the mayor presented the frame certificate to me. So I have that as well. Those are some of the items.
Nice.
Where can you see some of her stuff? I know that in the past, and trips to Universal Studios, the Hollywood Museum, those kinds of things. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, actually the Hollywood Museum, which is now opened again, has the Red Room or the I Love Lucy room, and a lot of the things in there, I'm going to say like 90%, are owned by me, and that's on loan. There's a great museum in Jamestown, New York, called the Lucy Desi Museum, and you can walk through like the I Love Lucy set, the Tropicana set. It's a whole I Love Lucy museum, and a lot of things are there. Just everything from soup to nuts, as they say. But there's Lucy statues in Palm Springs. There's a Lucy statue in Los Angeles. There's one in New York. There's one, in Jamestown, New York. There's actually a couple in Jamestown, New York. It's looking back in my life, it's like, wow, I knew this person, and she's been honored with a stamp, and she's been honored with so many awards. And somebody said, do you think Lucy would appreciate this, years later? And the nice thing is, Lucy was around, that she knows that people appreciated her, loved her. She was always awarded, and she couldn't walk down the street without people applauding. She couldn't walk down the street with somebody not stopping her every 2 minutes and saying, Lucy, we love you, and Lucy, we love you. And she knew that she was loved, even though she thought she wasn't loved after Life with Lucy. She thought nobody liked her anymore, which was really sad. And I don't think she ever got over that, which was sad, extremely.
So we have one comment in the chat from Patty, who loves your shirt. It looks like a vintage TV shirt that you're wearing right now.
Oh.
Yes, it's a great shirt. And,
thank you.
Yeah, and then following up to what you were just saying, you said in that photograph of you and her friend, and you're very smiley, that it was actually a sad day when she was escorted off the set. Did she ever, I don't remember when that timing was, did she ever go on and do more movies after that, or any TV after that, or was that the end?
It was pretty much the end until, she would do like a Bob Hope special. But she really she stayed home for the last, that was like 1986, and she passed away in 89. She did do the Academy Awards. and she passed away 3 weeks after that. So that was her last public appearance. She looked phenomenal.
She did.
She didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it. But Bob Hope forced her into doing it. She got the biggest standing ovation of the night. And I remember I was there. And I went as a seat filler. And a seat filler is somebody who, and they sort of made a joke about it at this year's Oscars, is if a celebrity wins an award, somebody will then slide into their seat. If somebody goes and I was just going to make a horrible joke. I'm not going to do that. If somebody has to go to the restroom, somebody will slide into their seat. If somebody's going to present an award, somebody will slide into their seat. And our credential was, as a seat filler, the lowest of the low credential you could have. Like, we can only we could go into the house of the theater and like line up against the wall until our turn is to sit in the seat. Lucille Ball does the red carpet. The second she does the red carpet, she comes into the Shrine Auditorium, is where they did the show that year. And I actually went to the door and I greeted her. And she takes my hand and she goes, "Come with me. I got to go to the restroom." I mean, like, not inside the restroom with her, but like, find me the restroom. Having Lucille Ball on my arm, my pass was good everywhere. She takes me backstage. She finds the restroom. Then we go into the green room. She introduces me to, my neighbor, Jimmy Stewart, and Kim Hunter, or Kim Novak. Who was in that movie with Jimmy Stewart? I think it was Kim Novak. And introduced me to Bob Hope.
It was Vertigo with Kim Novak.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. But introduced me to her, introduced me to Bob Hope, and all these other, big stars. And finally, the show was about to begin. And she said, "Where are you sitting?" I said, "I'm a seat filler." She goes, "What's that?" And I had explained to her what that is. She goes, "Here are my tickets. I'm not going to be sitting in the audience. Take them." She gives me the biggest kiss, like, goodbye. She always says she loved me. And off I went to my seat. She comes out about 30 minutes into the show with Bob Hope. And, well, when the show starts, the announcer says, like, "Join us tonight with," and I'm making up these names like Tom Cruise and Tom Selleck or whoever. But when they mention Lucille Ball's name, that audience of her peers started the biggest applause. And it's so nice. I hope she heard that. But when it was her turn to come out on stage, Lucille Ball and Bob Hope, they got the biggest standing ovation of the night. And Lucy looked phenomenal. She was wearing this dress that she hated. It weighed too much. And it had gold, like shoulder pads almost. And with her red hair, she looked phenomenal. And there's pictures on Facebook and YouTube and everything. But the audience sits, and what does she do? She gives me a wave. She mouths Heimlich on the Academy Awards. And that was actually the last time I saw her in person. She passed away 3 weeks later. So that's my last memory. I actually saw her in her house, but she was sleeping on the couch. But my last time with her is like, she says she loved me.
That's so special. And that experience is so incredible. Thank you for telling that story.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions that you have for Michael? Because we have a few videos we can show too in the last few minutes. Any other questions? You can shout them out or put it in the chat.
Come on, Patty or Abby or Judy, Cecilia, Sherry, Michael. Come on.
Sonia has a question.
Yay. You're the one who drank the vitamin Vegemin, right? Good. Okay.
So I don't have a question, but I felt extremely happy to see you today. I never met you before, but I'm crazy about Lucy. My ringtone on my phone forever has been I love Lucy.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
I
Meeting
came
you.
to this country in 71, and I didn't speak much English, and I started watching in my little black and white TV from Walmart, I Love Lucy. And I didn't understand everything, but her way of communicating, that exuberant happiness and craziness, was right there. I learned English watching I Love Lucy. I fell in love with her the week after we arrived in this country.
Well, I hope you
have
learned
been-
I hope you learned the English from Lucy and not from Ricky.
At the beginning, I sounded more like Ricky. So
that's
when
great.
when I had grandchildren, I thought I would communicate that love of Lucy to them. And I sat them down one day and I wanted to show them this collection that I had. And all of them are in black and white. They are the originals. And when they looked at it and they said, oh, old stuff, it's black and white. And then they started watching it. I have made all my grandchildren crazy about Lucy. And that's a big gift. Before my oldest grandson passed away, he was laughing in his bed watching Lucy, and that was the biggest gift I ever had.
Yeah.
So thank you.
She was good. She was good medicine. She was really good medicine.
Thank you for bringing it up and telling us all these stories. I really loved every single one of them.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you.
And I live in LA.
Oh, you do? Oh, good. Okay. Where?
In Walnut. I don't know if you know where that is.
No, it sounds a little nutty to me, but okay.
Yeah. It is. You go. That's my answering point. And the East San Gabriel Valley, next to West Covina. Doesn't sound familiar to you.
Sounds like Beverly Hills.
Yes, it's the East. It's the East Beverly Hills.
You got it.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. That was a lovely addition to our program today. Thanks for telling us that your lovely story. We have a couple questions. What was her cause of death?
An aorta rupture. She was actually in the hospital. She went in for like a heart attack and emergency surgery. She had a heart surgery and she was actually getting better. I saw her daughter like 2 days before she passed away. She was in the hospital for about a week. But approximately 6 o'clock in the morning, she had an aorta rupture. So I presume it went fast. And it's the same way that her idol, John Ritter, passed away. He also had the same. And Lucy adored John Ritter. Just loved slapstick comedy. She loved, do you remember the show Perfect Strangers? That show she also liked. It was almost like a Lucy and Ethel type situation.
So that follows, kind of segues nicely to our question. Do you know what was her favorite movie that she was in, that she played in?
I know she was very proud of the movie The Big Street. And that was like 1939. I'm not good with dates. And I think that's one reason Lucille Ball liked me so much, because there are Lucy fans out there who can say, why did you wear those earrings in this episode with this dress, but you wore them with this outfit with that dress? I mean, people knew every line. They knew every, like, why was the canisters in the I Love Lucy set moved from over here to over there? She didn't like that. She liked people to watch the show for the show, and not knew every single detail of memorizing everything. But she loved The Big Street.
Michael, The Big Street was like a dramatic. It was like one of her first films. It wasn't. She was a totally different character.
Oh, she was a little bit of a the B word.
Well, she was like a tough cookie in that.
Oh
role.
yes, but she did really well. And remember, Lucille Ball did not start off to be a comedian. She was a dramatic actress, or wanted to be a dramatic actress, but she got into comedy and she knew how to do it well. She learned from Buster Keaton. She learned from all these people because she would study how they operated. And here's the thing. When Lucille Ball had a script, she would practice, like, say, Vitamin and Benjamin or The Chocolate Factory for hours and hours and hours to make it look like she had never done it before. John Ritter did an episode of Life with Lucy, and he said he had just come from the Bill Cosby show. And on that show, Bill Cosby would practice everything 1 or 2 times, and that was it. And then he went with Lucille Ball, and he had to practice 30 times. And he said, look, I worked with the Queen of Comedy and the King of Comedy, but they got to the finish end.
This is your video.
They just, different types of working. But Lucy practiced. She was not a funny person. She could do funny things, but she was not a funny person. On a script, there was so much detail of, like, you'll almost like you'll pick up your left hand and grab some chocolate and put it on the person's face. I mean, everything was written out for her step by step. That's how she had to operate.
Well, that's fascinating. And maybe we can show the one, Christy, maybe we can show the video with Lucy before we close the program.
Judge Judy's not on for another couple of hours. We got time to talk. What video?
Oh, which one did you want? Lucy with Michael, that one?
Yep, that one.
Okay. Coming right up.
Okay. It's a very short clip.
Okay, coming right up. Hold on just a sec. Hold on. Give me just a minute here.
You got it.
Okay.
I could always draw it out. Here we go.
No, it's coming right up, right? Here we go. Turn up your sound, everyone. Oops.
Okay, I have a young man.
Hello, Mike.
Oh, we're not seeing it, Christy.
Mike is
We're
my
not
Aren't
seeing
you?
it.
Okay, hold on.
Pretty
How
young
do you
for that.
qualify to
All right. Let's try it again. Hold on. Little technical difficulties here.
I bet it was good.
All right, let's see. Okay. All right.
You were just seeing your screen, your desktop.
And it's
Okay.
very nice, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. Okay. Well, talk amongst yourselves while I figure out why this isn't sharing, because it's the same screen I showed the PowerPoint. So that's just really weird.
But, and if it doesn't happen, that's okay.
Hey, Michael, can you tell us a little bit about Wildcat?
No. Next question. No. I know so little about it. Lucille Ball made her Broadway debut after I Love Lucy, after the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour. She was getting a divorce from Desi, and she wanted to leave Hollywood. So she packed up her bags and thought she would live in New York, and she did Wildcat by Cy Coleman, and I forget who else wrote it, and the music. And but she was on Broadway only for about 100, maybe she did it like 100 times, but it was a musical, and she had the voice of Lucy Ricardo, I understand. And people came to see Lucy. And so from the first time she did Wildcat to near the end, it changed so much because she knew that people wanted to see Lucy Ricardo. So she would cry at one time. You know, she did a Lucy cry. She just did little bits. So the audience got to see a little bit of Lucy Ricardo. And it was still produced by Desi Arnaz. So even though they divorced, he still backed her up, and they worked together till the end. Watch the Lucy and Desi documentary. It's really good.
Is there another question?
Okay, let me see if I can try this again. Hold on a second. This is the crazy. Oh, here. Let's see.
You got it? Hey, Mike, tell us, because I'm a big fan of this, Lucy and Star Trek. She was the one, if it wouldn't be for her, we wouldn't have Star Trek,
That is correct. Lucille Ball, because at one point, she became the president of Desilu. And that's after Desi passed away. And she gave the green light to a show called Star Trek. She gave the green light to Mission Impossible. And she gave the green light to Mannix. So if it wasn't for Lucille Ball, we would not know these three shows. And she laughed later on and everything. That too bad she sold all the rights and everything to Paramount because she makes no money off it, or her family. So like Lucy Arnaz and Desi Jr., they make no money off of I Love Lucy because they sold that in 1958 back to CBS. Mm-hmm. They do make a couple dollars on I gotta sneeze, a Lucy like lunch pail or a Lucy doll, like one of these. She makes money that way on the likeness of her parents, and that's it.
So interesting.
What do you got there?
Lucy Arnaz made a CD-ROM package. I don't know if you can see this.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Is that the one about like a family tree?
Yes. And here's her picture.
Oh, yes. And she still looks like
she
that.
She autographed it for me.
I'm sorry?
She autographed it for me.
She did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here. That's so nice. Where did you see her?
At a genealogy convention.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Do you guys want to, let me see if I can try this video again. Are you guys seeing this yet?
No, but it's a black screen at the moment.
Okay, here it comes. Turn up your sound.
Okay, I have a young man here.
Hello, Mike.
Hi. My question is...
Mike is my #1 fan. He looks pretty young for that.
How do you qualify to be the #1 fan?
Yes, he just is, that's
it's
all.
It's a lot of collecting.
Yes.
Okay, my question is, do you bring Lucy home when you were working on Lucy, but did you bring it home to your husband every day, or?
I'd like to answer that.
Should you let him answer it, Lucy?
Yes, Gary.
Yeah, Lucy comes home as a wife, as Mrs. Morton, but sometimes it just happens. There's a certain thing about Lucy and Lucille, and sometimes Lucille comes home, and how it happens, I don't know, but she becomes Lucy, like tripping in the door, doing cute little things. She's a klutz, in plain words, but an adorable one.
Thank you.
That was on I love that. That was on a TV show called America Alive, which is like The View, those type of shows, The Talk. And for a 1-hour episode, they actually went outside of their stage and they went to UCLA. And for 1 hour, people asked questions, back and forth Q&A. And that's where she called me her #1 fan. So, and I'm very lucky that I have a copy of it, or nobody would believe me. She also said it on the Merv Griffin show too. Ooh.
This is all great, and I know we can spend the whole afternoon with you, Michael, just listening to you share your stories. And I think we have all of us here are fans of Lucille Ball, and this has just been a complete delight to have you be with us today. And Mordechai and Sherry, thank you for introducing us to Michael today. And maybe we can do a sequel to this down the road sometime to see what other stories come up.
Oh, like a Lucy rerun. Like a Lucy rerun.
There
Okay.
you go.
Which they invented. They invented the rerun.
Oh, wow. Yes. Yeah. So we can't thank you enough for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you all for joining us.